Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. It's a real honor to be here among you. I just want to share some of my thoughts and ideas on epistemic violence against Islam and the need for intellectual leadership. I am not very impressed by numbers. I sometimes hate big numbers. I want to be surrounded by people who are serious, even if the number is very small. So this has been my tendency, my attitude for the last 1 decade. I have seen enough. I have seen big numbers, and I have also seen how ineffective those big numbers are. So please be assured that, inshallah, by the end of this session, we will all try to learn something new, and we will all try to think new, not the usual way that people have been thinking for decades and decades. Let me unpack the topic of today's discussion. It's epistemic violence, and the other key term is intellectual leadership. In Islam, knowledge, ilm, or ma'rifah, education, is inherently good. In Islam, knowledge is inherently good. And knowledge leads to iman, hidayah, guidance, morality, integrity. So knowledge is the foundation. Once someone has knowledge, that person will be rightly guided. This is what Islam teaches us. This is what the Quran says. If you look at the stories in the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about different prophets, in all cases, Allah says that He gave the prophets knowledge, because once someone receives knowledge, that is the foundation on which everything else will depend. Unfortunately, in today's world, that knowledge is distorted. Knowledge which was supposed to guide us to truth and justice, that knowledge is being used to instigate falsehood, to promote falsehood, and to commit injustices. So this is what we are going to discuss today. The second key term is intellectual leadership. There is a difference between political leadership and intellectual leadership. When we say someone is a political leader, that person needs a position, needs a chair, needs a parliament, needs a presidential house. But when we talk about intellectual leaders, they do not need any chairs. They do not need any positions. Intellectual leadership is very powerful, very effective, even though it does not involve any position or any power. So those of you who are in front of me, including myself, if we want to be intellectual leaders, please be assured that you do not need to win any election. You do not need to stand for an election. You do not need to hold a position or power. Everyone, even if a beggar, even if an indigent person can be an intellectual leader, what it requires is quality, seriousness, scholarship. That does not need any position or power. I hope we all agree on this. I just want to say something which may not please many of you or those who are listening online. We will discuss something that is heartbreaking. We'll talk about physical violence, intellectual violence, how Islam and Muslims have been subjected to vicious propagandas and this and that. But please, you forgive me. I may not blame the perpetrators of intellectual violence. I may not blame the perpetrators of epistemic violence. I will blame Muslims who go to masjid 5 times a day or at least on Friday. The problem lies within us, not people who perpetrate intellectual violence or epistemic violence against us. So again, please forgive me. I may not say something very pleasing about you or about myself, because I know that the problem lies within us, not with those who commit epistemic violence. Now, what led me to this topic? Since I came of age, since I wanted to see the world, since I started forming opinions about my surroundings and about my society, about my country, from a very early age, what I have been noticing, what I have been seeing, all negative news. Since I came of age, I have heard news of massacres of Muslims, news of large-scale violence against Muslims, news of Muslims being brutalized in the street, at their homes, and their homes have been demolished, as if there is no end to it. If you look at your past life, since you came of age, the same is true. There has not been a single week when we did not hear bad news, when we did not hear news of oppression on Muslims. How long will that continue? Now, when we talk about physical violence, oppression, torture, persecution, we can refer to a poem by Muhammad Kamal Hasan. In 2002, Muhammad Kamal Hasan visited Spain. After coming, at that time, he was rector of IIUM. He was a rector from 1999 to 2006. So in 2002, he went to Spain. After coming back, he wrote a poem. The title of the poem is Complaining to Iqbal. Why complaining to Iqbal? Because Muhammad Iqbal visited Spain in 1933. And he also wrote a poem. His poem was Masjid Cordoba. Muhammad Iqbal wrote a poem on Cordoba Masjid. Kamal Hasan wanted to relive Iqbal's experiences. So he is telling Iqbal, "Oh Iqbal, you said that there would be an Islamic Renaissance. You said that the West would collapse. You said that there would be an Islamic resurgence. I don't see any. We are champion in illiteracy and corruption." In one place in his poem, he said that. And in this poem, while addressing Iqbal, Muhammad Kamal Hasan provides a catalogue of oppression that Muslims have been suffering. So I just read a few lines from that poem. He said, "Oh Iqbal, I wish you have heard the guns of Israel, the cries from Dar Yassin, Shabra, Shatila, and Janin, the savage rumblings of Sharon's tank, the merciless bulldozers steering into Palestinian homes. Oh Iqbal, you would weep if you know that Pakistan is now bleeding, Kashmir is bleeding, Chechnya is bleeding, Moroland is bleeding, and Aceh is bleeding, and Indian Muslims are burnt alive. A Muslim Holocaust is in the making. So this is how Muhammad Kamal Hasan summarizes a kind of sad picture, the sad experiences that Muslims in different parts of the world have been going through. And we have in front of our own eyes images coming from Palestine, especially Gaza, coming from Syria and many parts of the world. Some of the oppression we can see, some others we do not know. I can go on and on and on. So this physical violence is not the main violence. This is what I want to tell you, that even though we have so many sad stories coming from all around the world, but the physical violence is not the actual violence. People who justify physical violence, they are the main perpetrators. Those who commit physical violence are provoked by some intellectual discourse. People who produce those discourses, they are the real culprit, and we do not see them. They are in their libraries, they are in their universities, they are in their reading rooms, they are in their media houses. They wear decent clothes, they do not hold guns, but they provide intellectual justification to those who commit physical violence. So this physical violence is supported by epistemic violence. Epistemic violence means violence through knowledge, violence through information, violence through misrepresentation and distortion. And those of us here at a university, this is our job. This is our niche area that we are supposed to discuss it and we are supposed to counter it. If we do not counter it, then we are not doing our job. Now, this is a car accident. Now, I want to discuss this car accident in order to tell you how epistemic violence works. Imagine there is a car accident near IIUM, and 4 people were involved in the car accident, and all 4 people got killed. We do not know them personally, but we have heard from other sources that they are decent, good human beings. They are IIUM students, and they are very good human beings. After we hear the news, our reaction would be, we would feel sad. We would be sympathetic. But remember, we do not know them. We heard from various sources that they are good human beings. Now imagine, the same car accident happened around IIUM, and we have come to know from sources that all 4 people who were involved in the car accident, all of them were robbers. They were robbers, and we do not know them. We only heard from various sources that they were robbers. What would be our response or reaction after hearing the news?
Reaction will be changed.
So some of us would be indifferent. I don't care. We would not feel sad, or we would not be sympathetic to them. But remember, we do not know the earlier 4 people, and we should know the the later four people. So why do we have different reaction? Because of representation. The first four people were represented positively. That's why we felt sympathetic to them. The second four people were represented negatively. That's why we felt nothing or we felt indifferent. When Muslims suffers around the world, there are many people who feel indifferent. Why? Because of representation. The way Muslims have been represented in the media, in books, in documentaries, in films, in cinemas, they have been stuffed or they have been fed with information that is not accurate. All sorts of bad adjectives have been used to describe us. That's why when we suffer in Gaza, when we suffer in Libya or in Syria or in India or in any parts of the world, people in large majority of people who are otherwise decent people, they feel indifferent because of representation, misrepresentation. Now, how many people or how much do people know about Islam? Those of us in this room, we have a very good understanding of our religion and of our community. But I will show you as an example to tell you how much, not one example, I'll give you a couple of examples to show you how much people know about us. Even your neighbor who are not Muslim, how much do they know about us? And you will be horrified to see that. In 1960, this man, Grant Butler, wrote a book. The title is Kings and Camels. In this book, he wanted to discuss how much Americans know about Muslims, especially Muslims in the Arab world. So there was a training session like this one for people who would be going to Saudi Arabia to work for Aramco. Aramco is the oil giant, you know that. So I think the biggest oil company in the world. So this professor, he was running a session with Americans who would be traveling to Saudi Arabia and would be working there for Aramco. Since they are Americans and they would be going to a Muslim country, so they thought it is necessary to give them some information about Islam and Muslim. Now, before he started the workshop, he wanted to know how much they know about Islam. Now, when he asked his audience, what is Islam? These were some of the responses that came from them. Islam is a game of chance, similar to bridge. Okay? Another response is, Islam is a mysterious sect founded in the South by Ku Klux Klan. This is what Islam is. Another person wrote, Islam is an organization of American Masons who dress in strange costumes. And these are educated people. They are going to Saudi Arabia to work for Aramco. Now, who was Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? The answer is the man who wrote the Arabian Nights. Another answer is Muhammad was an American Negro minister who was in competition with Father Divine in New York City. Another person wrote, Muhammad had something to do with a mountain He either went to the mountain or it came to him. Now, you can say that that was in 1960. Honestly speaking, I don't think the knowledge about Islam has improved much since 1960. I'm giving you an example of 2009. Fast forward. I was in Germany doing a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Heidelberg. And my wife was there with me for a couple of months. One day my wife saw a flyer somewhere on the campus that there would be an excursion, an educational trip around the Heidelberg area. There are many, many castles in that state in Germany. And it is 2-day excursion, and the fees were very minimal. And both of us enrolled and we went on the trip. My wife made friends with some German students of Heidelberg University. One of them, I do not want to mention her name, one of them was the daughter of a priest. And she is a student of Heidelberg University, and Heidelberg University is the Oxford of Germany. When my wife told her that my wife was a doctor, a physician, she was totally shocked, that woman. Why? Because she said that honestly, all this while, I thought Muslim women are what we see in Afghanistan, that they are fully covered, illiterate, uneducated. I had no idea that a Muslim woman can be a doctor. So if she didn't see my wife, perhaps she would have that impression for a very long time. So what I'm trying to say is that when people misrepresent Islam or Muslims, since there is a gap of information, whatever is out there, people simply take it for granted. And that increases our responsibility. There is a gap, there is a void, a vacuum. If we do not fill it, other people will. And as I said, they are receptive of whatever information is out there. Now, as I said earlier, that physical violence is not the actual violence. The actual violence is knowledge and information that justifies physical violence. I was in Hajj last year, and I wanted to read few books during my Hajj. One of them was Morad Wilfred Hoffman's Journey to Mecca. Since I was on a Hajj trip, I thought I must read the book. I couldn't read it before I started my journey, but I read it while I was in Mecca. In that book, I came across this phrase. Morad Wilfred Hoffman says that there are potential perpetrators with pen and paper who hide behind their desk. Potential perpetrators with pen and paper. They are the perpetrators of violence. And they hold pen and paper and they hide behind their desk. They are not in the military zone. They are at campuses, in libraries, in their university offices. They are the potential perpetrators of violence. Ngugi wa Thiong'o died last year in May. He was a Kenyan writer of great repute. We people in the field of literature respect him highly because of his scholarship and also because of his anti-colonial attitude. Ngugi wa Thiong'o said, "But the night of the sword and bullet, the night of the sword and the bullet is followed by the morning of the chalk and the blackboard." The night of the sword and the bullet is followed by the morning of the chalk and the blackboard. The physical violence of the battlefield is followed by the psychological violence of the classroom. But where the former is visibly brutal, the latter is visibly gentle. When we see the violence in the battlefield, we see brutality. But the violence that the university professors and the media people are committing, that is very gentle. And we associate that with scholarship, with respect, with prestige. We do not call it violence. But Ngugi wa Thiong'o says both are interlinked. The night of the bloodshed is followed by the chalk or in the classroom in the morning. Now, one term that we use to describe epistemic violence against Islam is Islamophobia. We call it Islamophobia. This is one part of epistemic violence. And this is a book that I studied quite some time ago, Islamophobia, Making Muslims the Enemy. In the title of the book, there is no gender. If you notice, Islamophobia, Making Muslims the Enemy. In the title itself, there is no mention of gender. But the image that the writers use is a Muslim woman. What does it mean? That means the gender issue is the number one tool of the Islamophobes. The question of women's rights, that is the number one tool in the hands of the Islamophobes. Most of epistemic violence against Islam is perpetrated in the name of women's rights, in the name of gender equality. In the next page, I am going to share something very unpleasant. May Allah forgive us. I didn't want to share with you, but in order to tell you the extent of epistemic violence, the extent of hurt and pain and suffering that epistemic violence is causing. Last year, a friend of mine from the University of Queensland in Australia and I wrote a short article. What is halal? Generally, when we discuss halal, we only mean food. But halal is not all about food. Halal encompasses many other things. Your honesty, how you earn your money, how you spend it. All these are covered by the concept of halal. So we argued in that article that people who follow the principle of halal will be law-abiding, decent, honest citizens. Because in the West, there is a misconception of halal. They believe halal is some kind of terrorism. Because anything associated with Muslim must be bad, so including halal. So we wanted to debunk that notion by saying that anyone who follows the principle of halal would be decent, law-abiding, honest citizen. It was read by tens of thousands of people, but one man, he didn't like the article. Why he didn't like it? He said, you are promoting Islam by using this platform. And he wrote me a long email cursing me for writing on halal and promoting Islam on such a global stage. At the end of his email, this is what he shared with me. This is Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and Aisha Astaghfirullah. So, in other words, many people in the West, they portray our Prophet, sorry, I don't want to use that term, but you know what I mean. And I heard with my own ears, in America, there was a masjid surrounded by Islamophobes. They were cursing our Prophet. They have First Amendment right. They can say whatever they want. That is fine. But they were cursing our Prophet on the basis of this one. They were using that word, begins with P, you know what I mean. So if people in a country like the US really believe that we follow a prophet who is, according to them, this, then why will they have any sympathy for us? This is where we are losing the battle. We are losing the battle not in the battlefield. We are losing the battle somewhere else. And we have not been able to make it clear. We have not been able to explain it, to tell the truth, even though we are nearly 2 billion strong Muslims. And that's why at the beginning of this talk I said, I do not feel impressed by numbers. Okay, so I will come back to it later. This is a woman from Bangladesh. Now she is in India. Her name is Taslima Nasrin. I did major research on her, and I published 2 major journal articles, and both of them are from Britain. And these are top-tier journals. So I had to study her thoroughly. She has a poem. The title of the poem is Makkah and Medina. In this poem, she narrates a story. What's the story? Makkah and Medina are 2 girls. A man with a rosary in his hand, tasbih, he was coming back from masjid after praying. On the way, he met Makkah and Medina, and he raped both of them. Can you imagine the characterization of the story? Her choice of words. The man is coming from masjid. Obviously, he is a religious man. And the 2 girls are named Makkah and Medina. And he raped both of them. Now, if someone sees the previous image and then reads this poem, what is the conclusion someone will draw? The conclusion is that their prophet is dead and the followers are the same. Now you relate it to the car accident. Why people do not feel sympathetic to us? Is the power of representation. Now, Taslima Nasrin wrote a book. The title of the book in Bangla is Amar Meye Bela. Amar Meye Bela means my girlhood, boyhood, girlhood. She discusses how she was brought up in Bangladesh. Now, the title of the book is Amar Meye Bela, my girlhood. Now look at the English translation of the book that is taught at high school in the US. What's the title? Meye Bela, my Bengali girlhood, a memoir of growing up female in a Muslim world. Look at the term, Muslim world. Taslima Nasrin discusses her own experience growing up in Bangladesh. It is wrong to overgeneralize even Bangladeshi people on the basis of that story, because that is her personal story. And my personal story will differ from all Bangladeshis, even though I'm from Bangladesh, because we have our own experiences, which are distinct from other people's experiences. But this story has been used to overgeneralize the entire Muslim world. That this is how Muslim girls are being treated, Muslim girls are being brought up. And Meredith Tex, she is the one who promoted Taslima Nasreen in the US. Meredith Tex is from Brooklyn in Milwaukee, in Wisconsin. And I visited Brooklyn many, many times. And I was shocked that she was from Brooklyn, and she died in 2022. Even Meredith Tex eventually regretted promoting Taslima Nasreen in the US, because the impression about Muslim that Taslima Nasreen's book created in the US was so wrong. So even Meredith Tex, who is not a Muslim, she was a Jewish, even Meredith Tex eventually regretted promoting Taslima Nasreen in the US. This is how far-reaching the consequences are. Hijab is another tool of epistemic violence against Islam. If you think logically, someone who wears proper dress, covers himself or herself properly, can this be a reason for misrepresentation or caricaturing? What is wrong if I wear full sleeve shirt instead of a singlet in this venue? Can this be a reason for cultural caricaturing or to branding me as someone who is a bad person? This simple truth is missing in the representation of hijab. And unfortunately, Muslim women who wear hijab, they are silent in the face of all misrepresentation. Now, it's so sad. Once, one of my students, female students, came for a recommendation letter. And I had a chat with her. I said, okay, I will write you a recommendation letter. And while I was talking to her, she told me that before she came to IIUM, she didn't wear hijab. And after being here, she started wearing hijab, and now she is very happy with hijab. I said, I'll write you a recommendation letter if you can write a story on your experience of hijab. She said, okay, I will. I gave her the recommendation letter. She didn't write the story. So what I'm saying is that I was just trying to persuade her to tell the world that hijab is something that you feel proud of. And hijab has not done anything bad to you. You tell me, if I promote hijab, do I have legitimacy? Who am I to talk about hijab? I don't wear hijab. So people who wear hijab, if they write about hijab, that will have greater legitimacy. But Muslim women who wear hijab, they are silent in the face of all misrepresentation and misinformation. Now let's see what these scholars say. Robert Young was an Oxford professor. Now he is a professor at New York University, and I met him a few times in Britain and also had a few email correspondences. His book, Post-Colonialism, A Very Short Introduction, is quite famous. Many people read it. In this book, Robert Young said, in the 19th century, the West considered the wearing of clothes as the mark of civilization. It was savages who went naked. In the 20th and 21st centuries, however, semi-nudity became the signifier of Western superiority. In the 19th century, they were the ones who said covering your body is good and it's a mark of civilization. In the 20th and 21st century, they are the ones who say that no, now we go half naked. That is a mark of superiority. All these evidences are there. You do not need to use the Quran and Sunnah to talk about hijab. Just use Western sources and you see how much strong argument is there. But who will do that? Because we don't have time to study. Okay. Now I think I will go over a few more examples, then I will go to our responsibility, our intellectual leadership. This is another example of epistemic violence. This girl is a student of Dhaka University in Bangladesh. She was one of the student leaders who launched the July Revolution in Bangladesh and toppled Sheikh Hasina on the 5th of August 2024. And there are many, many student leaders who spearheaded that movement. The US State Department decided to honor the female leaders of the July movement. And Umama Fatima, she was picked by the US State Department to give an award. But Umama Fatima declined to receive the award from the US State Department. Why? She said that I cannot accept an award from the US State Department given that the US is complicit with genocide in Gaza. She made it explicitly clear that since the US is involved in the genocide in Gaza, I cannot accept this award. Because of that, the Palestinian ambassador in Bangladesh called Umama Fatima to his office and gave her this recognition. So do you have any doubt why Umama Fatima rejected the US award? It's definitely because of Palestine, because of her support for Palestine and because of her opposition to the Israeli genocide in Gaza, right? Now, look at the Wikipedia entry, how the Wikipedia entry describes it. In early 2025, Fatima was reportedly selected to receive the Madeleine Albright Honorary Group Award, a US-sponsored recognition. However, she declined the award, citing concerns about the perception of foreign influence in domestic student movements. The decision drew both praise and criticism, with some viewing it as a statement on political autonomy. The language is chaotic, meandering, it means nothing, but what is missing? Genocide, Gaza. So this is how Wikipedia is committing epistemic violence. So her concern for Palestinian is totally missing. No mention of Israel, no mention of Gaza, no mention of genocide. And some of us feel proud to study Wikipedia. And I heard a scholar the other day, a Muslim scholar, saying that Wikipedia is authentic, neutral. Sign of ignorance. I wrote an article, and after my article was published, I don't know whether this is a coincidence or they take note of the article. After that, the entry on Umama Fatima is missing. Now you go to Wikipedia, there is no entry on Umama Fatima. Are with me? So the entry on Umama Fatima has gone. But alhamdulillah, if that is because of my article, I made an impact. They were forced to reconsider. The same information is included under another entry, but the entry on Umama Fatima has gone. Okay, I have shown you the word. You saw the word? Hagana, right? Okay. Most of you here do not know what Hagana is. Iman, do you know what Hagana is? If you know, then you keep quiet. You may know it. You know. Yes, so I know that Iman could know it, so let us exclude Iman. The rest of you do not know what Hagana is. Do you know what Hagana is? No. When you do not know a word, what do? You go to dictionary. When you read the definition of that particular word, do you question the dictionary or you just accept it? We just accept it. A dictionary is supposed to provide the right definition. Are you with me? Now let me tell you what Hagana is. Hagana was a terrorist organization that killed 22,000 Palestinians and massacred millions of them. They burned 800 villages in 1948, and then the State of Israel was created. The same militia group, Hagana, later transformed into IDF. What is now IDF was originally Hagana. So Hagana was transformed into IDF. So Hagana was involved in massacring people, killing and expelling Palestinians, and later the Israeli state was created. Okay? Now, so this is what Hagana is. This is what Edward Said said. Hagana patrols with loudspeakers would periodically appear in the street in West Jerusalem announcing that residents should leave. They used to walk around with loudspeaker to say that you have to leave, otherwise you would be killed. And then I read this book by Benny Morris, The Birth of the Palestinian Refugee Problem. She said, during April 4th through 9, Ben Gurion, the first prime minister of Israel, and the Hagana general staff decided to clear out and destroy the clusters of hostile or potentially hostile villages dominating vital access. So they destroyed many, many villages. And from this book, Ben Morris's book, I got this photo. You see the photo? The Hagana soldiers, the Hagana militiamen are with guns at the back, and they are expelling the Palestinians from their homes. So these are the Hagana militiamen who are involved in expelling, killing, driving away Palestinians and demolishing and burning their homes and villages. Now, look at the definition of Hagana in the freedictionary.com, a dictionary that I use every day, multiple times. A secret society formed by Jews in Palestine in 2020 to defend themselves against attacks by Arabs. It forms the nucleus of the eventual Israeli army, that is IDF. No mention of all the massacres that they committed. And they are portrayed in such a noble way. They were defending themselves. Who are the culprits? Arab attack. That means the Arabs are the culprits. Freedictionary.com, the most widely used dictionary in the world. And you feel happy when you see millions of Muslims in the street. I don't feel happy at all. You do not need a million people to write a dictionary. You need some committed people, maybe people in this room can write a good dictionary and promote it. Wikipedia, formed out of previous existing militias, Haganah's original purpose was to defend Jewish settlements against Arab attacks. The same definition. Wikipedia. And the entry on David Ben-Gurion on Wikipedia is the same, self-defense. Conversely, the definition of this organization, do you see the word terrorism? It's there. Okay, let us fast forward. On the 14th of December, there was a terror attack on Bondi Beach in Sydney. And whenever we hear this kind of news, our first fear or our instinct is who committed it. If it is committed by Muslims, then all of us have to be in the dock. We are all prosecuted. That doesn't happen when people from other religious groups commit crimes. But this time, the people who committed the crime are reportedly Muslim. The man who defended is also Muslim, Ahmed al-Ahmed. The next day, the 15th of December, there was an article on Conversation. Conversation is a very prestigious media outlet. And the title of the article is, How Can Parents Talk to Their Kids About the Bondi Terror Attack? I feel surprised. How come the next day an article was ready to be published? I have no idea, because I write regularly. Let's say if an incident happened this afternoon, how can I prepare an article and it would be published the next day? The person must be a very good writer. This is what I can tell you. There can be other reasons, but this is what I think. Maybe the person is a very good writer. Let's give them the benefit of doubt. In that article, there is one section. The section is, when you talk to your children about such terror attack, focus on the good and brave people. Focus on the good and brave people. And under this section, there are 2 paragraphs. These 2 paragraphs read, encourage your kids to think about the many helpful and brave things people did and continue to do around this tragedy. Police, paramedics, doctors, nurses, and bystanders all stepped in and did incredible things to help. We don't want kids to come away thinking all people are bad and want to hurt each other. The truth is, most people would not choose to hurt each other and instead would choose to help. Where is Ahmed al-Ahmed? Wasn't he the bravest person in that incident who risked his own life? No mention of Ahmed al-Ahmed. And how could they do it? That was all in the media. And I read the whole article, no mention of Ahmed al-Ahmed. This is epistemic violence. It's called shadow banning. You just ban. Do not mention the good people in a particular community. Now I can go on and on and on to give you examples of epistemic violence, but that may not help. People whose job is to perpetrate epistemic violence will continue to do so, whether we are happy or sad. They don't worry about our feelings. They don't worry how we feel when we are misrepresented. My concern is our response. How do we respond to epistemic violence? What is the usual response? The usual response from most Muslims is take to the street. You take to the street and shout. Sometimes, because of our wrong approach and because of this kind of shallow understanding that by taking to the street you can solve all problems, this creates opportunities for Islamophobes to commit more violence against us. Let me tell you this story. Roughly 1 million people gathered in Dhaka on the 3rd of May last year. Why did they gather? In Bangladesh, there was a women's commission formed by the government. And that commission was tasked with giving recommendation to the government how to improve the condition of women in the country. That was what the government wanted, and they formed a committee. Unfortunately, in the committee, there was not a single scholar of Islam or not a single scholar of women's rights in Islam, even though Bangladesh is a Muslim majority country. Now, the report that they produced had some elements which are not in agreement with Islam. Some elements in the report contradict the teachings of Islam. Fine, that is what they produced. And the report was 300 pages long. They produced a report, and there are some elements which are against Islam. If you want to counter that report, you need to write another report, right? This is what logic says. Instead of writing any report, any intellectual response, they simply took to the street and organized this big rally. Eventually, that became counterproductive. How? The global media took that rally as an opportunity to caricature Muslims. Now see how the AP reported it. Thousands of supporters of an Islamist group rallied in Bangladesh's capital on Saturday to denounce proposed recommendation for ensuring equal rights. You see, they portray the whole rally as a group of people who are opposed to equal rights for women. So that created an opportunity for that kind of media to further caricature Muslims. This is how we also provide platform and avenues for the perpetrators of epistemic violence. This is perhaps the largest media outlet in India. It says the protesters mainly denounce proposed recommendation for ensuring equal rights. Again, the protesters are against equal rights for women.